Welcome to Biology with Mrs. Ignacio. We're going to jump right in. So, let's talk about biology. What is biology? Well, biology is the study of life, the study of living things. Okay, so we will have an introduction to biology, the study of life, the study of living things. So, let's talk about what does it mean if something is living? If something is alive, it grows, it reproduces, it contains cells, and it responds to the surroundings that it's in, and it also uses energy. So I want you to think about two items, one that's non-living and one that's living. So let's use my cat as an example. So my cat does grow, right? Um, because it wasn't Oliver wasn't born that big. He actually grew, right? He was born a kitten, and before he was fixed, he was able to reproduce, and he was able to make other cats, right? Make kittens if he had a mate, and he is made up of cells. Okay, he is made up of eukaryotic cells. And he does respond to his surroundings, very much so. And he does use energy. And the energy he uses, he gets from his food. Food is broken down into fuel that his body can use. Okay, so that's an example of a living thing. Let's take the minivan that I have for an example. Can this minivan grow? No. Can this minivan reproduce? Can it say, okay, I want to have a baby minivan? No. Does it contain cells? No. Does it respond to its surroundings? Well, not unless somebody's behind the wheel, right? And does it use energy? Well, it does. It uses fuel. Okay, so we have to have a full tank of gas, or we have to have at least some gas in the tank in order for the van to be able to go. Okay, so the minivan does have some characteristics, but it doesn't have all of the characteristics. And so, in order for something to be considered living, it must meet all of these criteria. Okay, let's take a look at the branches of biology. So, biology, the study of life, the study of living things, there's so many different branches that it has, but we're going to just take a look at these right now. So, cytology is the study of cells, prokaryotic cells, eukaryotic cells, right? The study of cells, plant cells, animal cells, cytology, the study of cells. Genetics. So when we talk about genes, heredity, we talk about chromosomes. This is genetics, genetic counseling, looking for conditions that are passed on from biological moms and biological dads to their offspring. So genetics is an amazing field of study, and that is a branch of biology. Another branch of biology is microbiology. Okay, so microbiology is the study of microscopic organisms, sometimes called microbes. Examples of those can be bacteria, viruses, right? And so microbiology is a study of these microbes, these microscopic organisms, things that cannot be seen with the naked eye. Botany, the study of plants. We're talking about plants, flowers, grasses, trees. Botany, simply amazing. Zoology, the study of animals. If you're an animal lover, you might want to become a zoologist, right? Zoology, they study animals. That includes domestic animals as well as wild animals. Anatomy and physiology is also a branch of biology, and anatomy is the study of the human body, the structures, and the functions that they perform is the study of those functions, or it's called physiology. So anatomy and physiology are always pieced together. Anatomy, again, is the study of the structures. Physiology is the job or the function that those structures perform. Ecology is a study of how organisms relate to one another. And you may be thinking, hey, That's like ecosystem, and it is, right? So ecology, we study these organisms, we study the food webs, we study the environment, we study the biomes. So that is all within ecology. All right, something that's important for us as biologists is to understand the scientific method. So there's a few, well, 5 steps that we kind of need to know. And step number one, we have to look at the world around us and we have to identify a problem. So we define the problem, we ask a question, and then we're going to do some research based on our question, and then we're going to form an educated guess, hypothesis. And so this hypothesis should be a statement that predicts an outcome or guesses to what the outcome is going to be. And this hypothesis should be written in clear, simple language, right? And it should be able to be tested. Now, step 4 is testing the hypothesis, and this usually involves some kind of experiment. And while this experiment is taking place, as good scientists, we're going to write down our observations and collect data. Step 5, we're going to state our conclusions based on our experiments, based on the analysis of the data, looking at the data closely and examining it. What did we decide? Okay, so you might want to think about this over the course of the next couple weeks or so. What's a problem or something that's going on that I might want to define the problem, ask a question, maybe conduct an experiment about something, right? So ask yourself this question, look around your environment, and maybe you can use the scientific method to develop a plan to test your hypothesis, your educated guess. Now, sometimes the scientific method does have its limitations. It's not perfect. If your hypothesis is too broad, it's not narrow enough, it doesn't focus on specific items, that could be problematic. Or if your technique is not very precise, or if your experiment is flawed, that could affect the use of the scientific method. If you are not fully engaged in making the appropriate observations, right? If you walk away from your experiment, you might miss something, right? So that's what we're talking about, incomplete human observation. So there's also atypical specimens or organisms. Sometimes those things that we are experimenting on, they may not be the norm or the representative for a particular population. So we have to look at that carefully. We also have to try not to have biased thinking, because if you go in thinking one thing, you have to still be objective and not pass your preconceived notions on to your experiment. So that's really, really important when we think about our limitations of the scientific method. All right, let's jump right into lesson 1B. And so this kind of talks about our planet. We live on the planet Earth, and we have a star that is the sun. And we know that that star is what gives us heat, light, and the Earth rotating on its axis is actually important because that gives us night and day rotating on its axis, and rotating around the sun or orbiting around the sun gives us our night and day and our seasons. We also have what's called a magnetosphere. So the magnetosphere is really important. Okay, so the Earth, unlike Mercury, Venus, and Mars, we have an immense magnetic field that we are surrounded by. And this this magnetic field is called the magnetosphere. And so this magnetosphere is important because it shields us from the erosion of our atmosphere by the solar wind, right, which are charged particles that the sun is continually letting go, right, in our direction, okay? So This magnetosphere does protect us, okay? And so it protects us from the radiation from the sun. The magnetosphere plays a role of a gatekeeper, repelling this unwanted energy that can harm us. So, this is really, really important to understand. The magnetosphere also serves to trap that harmful radiation that comes from the sun, and it keeps it inside of these belts that are called the Van Allen belts. Okay, so another thing to note about our planet Earth is that most of it is water. Over 70% of the planet's surface is surrounded by or taken up by water. All right, so let's talk about the unique properties of water. And we're going to get deeper into this as we continue the course, but we're just taking a quick look as this is an introduction. So we say that water is polar or it has polarity. So each molecule has a positive charge on one side and a negative charge on the other, just like a magnet. Water is also what we call a universal solvent, meaning that many substances can actually dissolve into water because of this weak magnetic bond. Okay, so things can dissolve into water. So think about, what have you ever dissolved into water? Maybe Kool-Aid, maybe Crystal Light, right? Maybe Skittle juice, right? But we use water as our solvent because it is able to have things dissolved inside of it. So water also exists in three states: solid, liquid, and gas. So water also needs a lot of energy and time to cool. And this is important because this helps these living creatures to have more stable temperatures, okay? So again, water needs a lot of energy to heat and a lot of time to cool, okay? But this is important because it allows living things to have a more stable temperature. In humans, we do need stable temperatures because if it's too cold outside, we can develop frostbite. If it's too hot outside, we can develop heat exhaustion. So really, that is really a great thing that water provides for us. Okay, water also gets less dense when it freezes. So that means the molecules are not as tightly packed. So this is important because it allows ice to float in cold weather, so whole bodies of water don't totally freeze. So this is important because, right, when we have that frozen layer on the top of like a pond, for example, underneath, there's all of the water is not frozen, and this allows the creatures that live in the water to stay alive. However, it's very dangerous for humans because if we see a frozen pond or what we think is a frozen pond, we may try to walk across it and end up falling through a patch that is actually not frozen. So that can be pretty dangerous. Okay, so be careful on those frozen ponds. The reference that I use is Journey Homeschool Academy Biology Curriculum. And at this time, think about it. Do you have any questions? Hopefully, you are going through and filling out your study guide. And if you do have questions, bring them to class and be ready to ask questions. Thank you so much for your curiosity and always, always, always ask questions. Thank you.